worked in intensive care for 12 years, and I saw some strange things. One night, we had 4 patients in a row lose very important lines. These are things like central lines for IVs, breathing tubes, feeding tubes, etc. No one was in the room with the patients at the time that this was happening. Our desks were designed so that we were between 2 patient rooms. We could see both rooms from one desk. The patients were sedated on the vent. The first had a central line that pulled out. We managed that, stabilized the patient, and then the next patient pulled out their breathing tube. Then a feeding tube. The next was another breathing tube. There was no reason for it, and we tried to figure it out. More often, some patients would see a little boy in red pajamas come to their door or into their rooms. Whenever they reported seeing the boy, that patient would die soon afterwards. I only had one patient that saw him. She had a stroke. We were doing comfort care only. I was working the night shift. Throughout the night, she had periods of being afraid, so I'd hold her hand and we would talk, the best she could, and this would calm her down. During one such talk, she said, "Watch out for Bruce." Bruce is my dad's name. This woman didn't know me, did not know my dad, and I'd made no mention of him while taking care of her. I said, "Who's Bruce?" Thinking maybe it was someone close to her. She laughed and said, "You know who he is. You look just like him." I had chills all over. I do look like my dad, just like him. She said, "Watch out for him. Make sure he doesn't fall. Just watch out for him." And then she drifted off to sleep. A little while after that, she saw the little boy dressed in red. She asked who he was, why we had children in the unit. I told her we didn't. It was an adult ICU. I asked her to describe him. She said, "I guess he's about 2 or so, blonde, wearing red pajamas. He comes to the door and just stares at me. He doesn't come inside." She died later that day, on day shift. We had superstitions about certain things, such as if a patient was dying, tie a knot in the bedsheet and the patient would last through your shift. Or if a patient was dying and it seemed to be unusually prolonged, open the doors or windows and give their spirits somewhere to go. Some patients would hold on until a date had passed so that they wouldn't die on an anniversary or birthday or other important date. Occasionally, we'd have a room where several patients in a row would die, so we started asking the chaplain to cleanse the room after 3 deaths. That would almost always end the cycle. The worst thing that I saw was a very mean old woman. She was in our unit for a couple of days. She was truly awful. She would say mean things to the staff. She cursed at everyone. She got physical. She didn't have any family or friends that came to visit her. One night, she had a cardiac arrest, and we put her on the vent. She was awake on the vent, and she was terrified. She was looking up, not seeing anything in this world, and she was shaking her head. No, very emphatically. She was holding her arms up as if to protect herself. She looked like she was trying to scream, but of course, she couldn't make any sound because of the breathing tube. We tried to calm her down, to sedate her, but nothing worked. She had another cardiac arrest and died. After her death, we contacted her sons. It was then that we learned why no one visited. She had abused her sons their entire lives. Both had cut off contact with her. Whether you believe in hell or not, it sure seemed she was going somewhere she didn't want to. When I first started working at an assisted living facility with other caregivers, they would warn me about the full moons, how our residents would always act up. I never believed it until I saw it for myself. This isn't exactly what I'm going to write about, but it's something that most night shifters can agree. is a real phenomenon. So I figured I'd start with that piece. Anyway, we used to have this resident. She was very spiritual, very cognitively blessed, considering why she was there. She was sharp and only rarely showed her dementia symptoms. One night she came to me, quietly rolling her wheelchair down the hall. She said, "Jessica," in her lovely, timid voice, and I responded in a manner matching her own quietness. She said she needed to talk to me, and I said, "Sure thing." So we went to a secluded area and sat down. She looked me right in the eyes and said, "Lee has the death angel lurking around him." I was shocked. Being a spiritual person myself, I didn't doubt her. Honestly, I was just scared. She could sense my fear and assured me that the death angel was very peaceful, only here to help people cross. After getting it off her chest, she quietly wheeled her way back to her room. I was still slightly in a daze after hearing such a thing, and I tried to forget about it because honestly, it terrified me to know that a powerful entity, it could be lurking around in these very halls. 2 days later, I showed up for my shift, and while the previous staff was giving me the pass down, she said, "Lee isn't with us anymore.